Man, sucks to have no football, but yeah, great game. I think the margin was a lot bigger than I thought, but I don't
Hmm.
think we were really surprised by it. So we'll dive into that before we
Yeah.
go do anything further. Corsian, how you doing? How's your week going? I know
Uh,
how miserable you are without football, so what's going through your head right now?
yeah, no, I'm doing pretty good right now. I, amongst many people, enjoyed watching the. I don't know how many people actually I know were disappointed with the Super Bowl with how one-sided it ended up being, but I enjoyed my previous week. Um, yeah, nothing too crazy going on. Reading some, I guess, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I for one love defensive football, so
Hmm.
I was going nerdy over the types of blitzes that
Hmm.
Seattle threw, and then like how they were getting home, and like a lot of the casuals I was with, we'll just put it nicely. Um, they didn't really they didn't really like that there's not much scoring going on. They were like, "Oh, it's
Hmm.
gonna be a shutout. It's gonna be a shutout." And then for so long, I thought it was gonna be, and I was
That would have been
like,
so crazy.
that would have been the first time in the league. Like a lot of people were like, "Oh, scoregami," and I'm like, maybe we'll see. But give the Patriots credit. Did it end up being a scoregami Super Bowl?
I don't know.
I haven't seen a. I haven't seen. Let's look it up real quick because I'm curious now. No. Oh, it's actually happened 11 times before.
Mm.
So yeah, it's not a scoregami.
Ah.
But yeah, we were having a casual friend who was like did all these bets and like the coin toss and stuff like that. So yeah, that was fun.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't get to watch the halftime show. I heard a lot of people liked it.
Hmm.
Um, I saw there were some weddings during the Super Bowl
Hmm.
halftime show, which is wild. Saw Green Day perform before, so there's a lot of good things to like. But I think as far as like the actual game, um, just masterful job by the Seahawks. We'll get into that. But what were your some of your takeaways watching it?
Yeah, I mean, going into this, I felt like there's quite a team difference going on in terms of the quality of the team that the Seahawks had versus the quality of the overall team that the Patriots had. like I had my keys to victory for the Patriots, um, going into this week, and pretty much they were not able to attain like almost any of those keys to victory, which obviously results in this loss here. Um, but yeah, I mean, you want me to go like further into I guess some my keys to victory or that like
Go
from
as further as you want. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, like the first key point I think I said was being able to establish a strong run game with Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson. Um, But as you look at the box score, Drake May, I think, was the leading rusher for the Patriots with 37 rush yards. Stevenson had 7 carries for 23. And then Travion Henderson had 6 carries for 19 yards. So both of them averaged under 3.5 a carry. And I was like, if you want to alleviate the pressure that Drake May will be facing as his first starting season going into Super Bowl, you're gonna need to be able to run the ball efficiently. And then the second part was being able to make those coaching halftime adjustments. And more or less, coach of the year and the assistant coach of the year failed to really change all too much going into halftime or going after halftime, because I was talking about how the Patriots, week after week after week so far in the playoffs, have faced strong defense, strong defense, and strong defense with the Chargers, Texans, and the Broncos. And you're like, use these games almost as practices to see how your offense handles elite defenses, because this is the first time it's really happened to you all season, to help prepare yourself for the most elite defense in the league in the Seahawks. And it didn't seem like the offense was anywhere near ready to make those movement, to deal with whatever pressures or, things that the Seahawks were going to show. And obviously it's a tall task, tall order to, ask somebody to prepare for the Seahawks defense. But like, again, if you're winning coach of the year, assistant coach of the year, like these are kind of some of the things that you expect to get out of your offense, get out of your defense to be able to combat the best team in the league in the Seahawks.
Yeah, and I think there's only so much you can do when it comes to personnel on personnel. So I
Mm-hmm.
think a little bit was that. And for those like just solely blaming Will Campbell, I think there's some context missing here. He was clearly hurt. You could see it. Like
Mm-hmm.
he was getting. I'm saying this as a person who injured his calf like last Thursday and still in pain with that. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I can barely walk. This guy's a professional athlete going to his rookie year this
Mm-hmm.
year, and or that had played his full rookie year now, but was hurt, playing hurt against one of the best scoring defense in the league,
Mm-hmm.
and like monstrous edge rushers coming off of injury, and you could see he wasn't fully himself. He was just trying to gut it out because the last game of the season, everything's on the line. He's going to give it everything he's got. What's he got to lose?
Mm-hmm.
And I just think you saw the inexperience combined with the unfortunate injury impact limit him a bit. I
Mm-hmm.
think he's going to be a great tackle. You've
Mm-hmm.
highlighted him in the middle of the season. There's a lot to like about him, and I love how Rabel stood to bat for his guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of it was like if you listen to the Seahawks players talk, they had a common um, protection scheme. Like their protection scheme was too transparent. Like they knew the calls, they kind of tipped them off, like from an offensive line perspective, and it kind of set the table for everything. Like Drake May thought Nick Imamori, who we like gushed over
Mm-hmm.
in the preview, like was blitzing every time, so he just shifted the protection to him. And there were various instances where like
Mm-hmm.
he just did not see the unblocked defender, especially Witherspoon, very early in
Mm-hmm.
that game. And you could tell it kind of just threw off the entire offense, but they couldn't build any momentum until the fourth quarter. And then once they were building that momentum in the middle of the fourth quarter, I thought like, wow, they got to be perfect, but they have a chance here. Like Drake May was just by that point, he was just trying to throw it downfield because it worked with that Matt Collins touchdown. He was making ill-advised decisions that you typically don't see him make. Like he was throwing it into triple and double coverage, and you didn't really see him do that.
Mm-hmm.
And once the interception happened, like it was bound to happen, given like constantly targeting the triple
Mm-hmm.
coverages, kind of saw the writing on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
But their defense did everything to hang in there. I want to give Christian Gonzalez tremendous credit. He saved at least 10 points off the board. But
Mm-hmm.
to me, the game was won and lost in the trenches.
Yeah, and like more than Will Campbell and his issues, like obviously Will Campbell has had a pretty poor playoff performance, but like again, he was injured, and honestly, even if him playing as a full-on left tackle doesn't pan out, I still think that he can be elite as an interior offensive lineman, just with his reach to certain extents. But bigger than that, Jared Wilson was the biggest weakness in this offensive line. I don't know if you saw much about the issues with Jared Wilson. Did you?
I mean, they both were letting guys pass him. Like it was.
Okay, wait.
I didn't look at him specifically, so I'll let you deep dive on that. But like I felt like the entire line struggled, to be honest.
Yeah, so I saw this dude. He basically did an analysis on what the tell was for this Patriots offensive line. And it was basically Jared Wilson, every single down, was looking at the man he was supposed to block. So typically, you're coached at, like, people are saying at a high school level, you're coached to look down or just look straight ahead if you're an offensive lineman, not just show who you're going after. And so the guy, he like points at, see, look at the right tackle, the right guard, the center, and Will Campbell, the left tackle. They're either looking down or looking just straight ahead. But then you look at Jared Wilson, and has heads on a swivel, looking directly at the guy he goes after. And so basically, the Seahawks got a read on that, and they decided they're going to blitz on Jared Wilson based off where he was looking. Because if he's looking towards, the center to help support, or he's looking towards like interior defensive lineman to support the center, and then Will Campbell's got a guy on the edge, then you know how the man-to-man assignments for that blocking scheme goes. And so then you basically create a free gap between Jared Wilson and Will Campbell, where a free blitzer can come in and get the guy. And the Seahawks defense never had to guess on this, because every single time Jared Wilson lined up you could see exactly who's going to block towards. In the video that I saw, it was literally he kept on pulling different examples throughout the game where he was staring down a guy. There's a play where you could see him staring down a off-ball linebacker, and that's exactly who he ran to. There's one where his head is almost tilted at like a 90-degree angle, looking like this way as he's getting set, and you see him after the snap run towards the nose tackle basically, and like what the tell is obvious is like like a good defensive coordinator, good defensive minds will see those tells, and we'll be able to, if they're able to manage the personnel well, you're able to take full advantage of that. And I think that's why we saw so many free blitzes come in towards Drake May throughout the game, because you basically gave away what type of blocking scheme you're doing simply because your left guard kept on looking at exactly who he's going to go after.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That was just a fantastic point on Wilson. I think it just highlights the difference between rookies and veterans in the league, because as you get older and like in a sport, you figure out it's more mental than physical, if anything. And like you figure out little ways to do what you do best, even if the opposing side knows it. Like you have ways to go around it. It's the mind that made Tom Brady so great. Aaron Rodgers, like these guys can still play because they have a brilliant mind. And it's the same thing with the old lineman that you don't realize. Like obviously you want to execute your assignment and be on time with your assignment, but if you tip that off, it has huge ramifications, especially with a defense as brilliant as the Seahawks are. So that was great analysis by you. Just bring that to the forefront. I think one of the things they also did really well was two things. One, they did a lot of what the Bears had done against the Rams that were effective, which was bring in their slot corners and DBs to blitz, because like Drake May is a really good scrambler and he still had 37 yards in this game, leading rusher, but they made it very difficult for him to scramble out as an outlet because the amount of guys they set from the slot, like, and bringing extra bodies, forcing guys to help in protection, speeding up his internal clock on top of the 4-man fronts they were getting there. That really limited his scramble ability when nothing was there downfield. And he still got some scrambles, obviously. And then the other thing is they were just anticipating his checkdowns really, really well. Like there's one play where Josh Jobe like just peeled, like he's supposed to have like a flat coverage, covering the flat like on one of his receivers and stuff like that. And like you could tell the Patriots play was designed to get that outside receiver like mashed up on the corner to open up the flat route for the running back. And Job just like peeled off in the running back as soon as he saw what the concept was. And I think that goes back to like Mike McDonald's philosophy on defense as teaching the entire defensive play call instead of the individual responsibility to each player, because it allows them to adapt to like what is going on conceptually with what the offense is showing them. And by being able to do that, you have guys in the defense that can communicate and recognize patterns, recognize concepts in order to adapt rather than like be stuck with a set of play calls based on the formations they see. And I think you really saw that as well. So those are kind of the two nuggets I noticed on the defense side.
Yeah, I like your point on like those checkdowns, how like Seattle played really well on that. And I think a big part of that was just they like obviously they out physicaled them in the trenches, but they also were extremely physical in pass coverage. Like the second the ball hit the receiver's hands, like guys were getting slammed into. There was the one, I think it was Kobe Bryant, the one where the ball, it looks like he's about to intercept the ball, but he's just full charging into the back of the target that was supposed to get the ball. And it's like these guys aren't even going for the ball half the time. They're almost sending a message like, hey, like you better watch out where you're running, because if you're not aware, we're just gonna slam right into you. And then that makes the receivers more aware of that. And it makes them more antsy when trying to catch like a ball in completely open field, because they don't know if someone's going to come flying out of nowhere. And then I think later in the game, it was a slant on Stephon Diggs, which is like a short catch and go like opportunity. But Like the ball hits his hands, and then like again another Seattle defensive back just collides into his like waist, and like Diggs starts like flips around or whatever, and you see him on the ground for a couple seconds, obviously because that hurts. And so it's like that, and then like further on like the checkdowns, they were just slamming into Austin Hooper. Hunter Henry is getting slammed into every time the ball went his way. Like even if the ball was going towards the ground is almost an incomplete pass where like the receiver was diving towards it. Like on a lot of these checkdowns, I felt like I always saw a Seahawks player just like diving down onto whoever was the target of that, even if it was probably going to be an incomplete pass. Just to basically send a message of, hey, we're going to be physical. You're going to like be hurting after this game because that's, Seattle ball, which I guess there's just like a whole nother level of like what I think saw the rest of the playoffs in comparison.
Yeah, and to add on to that, whenever you face that much of pressure for a Patriots team, like they haven't really been put in the situation where they kind of have to pass and like have a heavy pass game script to even get back into the game. So when they were facing a new situation like this on the biggest stage, like it was very difficult for them to build some confidence until late in the fourth quarter when they had to have it. And the Seahawks are just focused on playing prevent defense. So just a little nugget there. I wanted to talk about the other side of the ball because obviously a lot of people are probably going to be annoyed with like how much of Sam Darnold redemption was like thrown around in the media throughout the entire game. But let me just say this. You clearly saw the difference between May and Darnold in this game, like with where they're at in their careers. Like Darnold, yes, like kind of Walker deserved MVP, absolutely. But to say that Sam Darnold was kind of just riding the coattails of this defense and the rest of the team is not telling the full story. This man didn't turn over the entire ball. Like didn't turn over the ball the entire postseason, I mean. Like that is huge. Like whenever you have a good defense, that's just playing complementary ball. And for Sam Darnold specifically, in the biggest losses he's had this season and last season, he's turned it over multiple times. And the fact he didn't do it over the course of 3 games, like 3 of the most important games of his career, I think is a testament to like how right the Seahawks were to give him that contract and how he should be viewed as an elite quarterback. Like I saw a lot of discourse on like, oh, I still rather have 6 or 7 different NFC quarterbacks. And personally, I believe in the talent of Caleb Williams, so I would want him over Darnold. But if I had Sam Darnold on the Bears, I wouldn't complain because he's clearly evolved to a different quarterback than how we've seen him or viewed him on the Jets. And I think just recognizing the subtleties in the game and throwing the ball away when it wasn't there, you clearly saw a marked difference. Where like early in the game, he was trying a little bit too much to press, and every quarterback gets away with a couple throws. He certainly did. But I think for the most part, he didn't put his team in harm's way when they were kicking field goal after field goal after field goal to let the Patriots back in. I think that's a huge thing to point out before we get to Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, and like you said, like his ability to throw the ball away and like knowing when to do that instead of forcing a throw or taking a sack, I think was really huge. Where I swear, like there was like 4 or 5 plays where the O-line kind of collapsed in on itself, and Sam Darnold would like break a tackle or two and like weave in between his offensive linemen to basically create another like 5+ seconds of time for him to see if someone is downfield, and if not, scramble for a couple yards or throw the ball away, which is a significant stat. Where it's like just the ability, because like those sacks, sure, you're not turning over the ball, but you're losing like 5 yards on those, right? And so basically by not losing those 5 yards, you're making a huge play. And the way Kenneth Walker played throughout the game, averaging 5 yards a carry, like basically, you don't get the big yardage you want on first down but then you don't lose any yards because of Sam Darnold's playmaking ability. And then the next 2 plays, it's basically Kenneth Walker able to convert that first down and progress your drive further, and then see if you can like get going on the air again. And so, yeah, his ability to avoid pressure was really incredible and widely on display this game that I think really went undernoticed.
And on top of that, like he was missing throws he should have had. Like JSN wasn't getting he wasn't going off like he would in other games. Like there was really nothing going right for the Seahawks the first half. They were just kind of trying to survive. And jumping into the MVP talk with Kenneth Walker, like just I don't know how he does it because he's not when we look at the list of backs in the league, he's not going to be top 5. He's not going to be top 6. But he is a special back in the way he seems to outrun defenders when clearly like the angle and the leverage is not there for him to do that. Like he seemingly somehow gets around guys even when you're not supposed to. And some of it was like bad Patriots run defense and Spurs, but most of it was like the play is not there. He's getting -2 or -3, and then suddenly he's just somehow bouncing it out to the corner and finding a crease in their scheme, like on the outside to at least get something. And a lot of his runs were like that in the first half, and then he kind of just broke the door open. And that's really the difference in the game between the two offenses in my mind because it was that and then Sam Darnold just not even like scrambling like and beating the Patriots with his legs. It's more just like beating them from the pocket and subtle pocket movement that you see from a veteran quarterback. It's a combination of that and then Walker just being special and somehow getting an angle that really made the difference in the run game.
Yeah. And then we talk about some of those like missed connections, like on that wide open JSN or Emerald City route artist that basically go ahead touchdown, right? But sure, those didn't connect, but the fact that they were so close on connecting on those, there's like one deep shot to Rashid Shaheed that barely gets broken up by Christian Gonzalez, right? And like the fact the threat of those plays almost hitting basically forces the defense to stay honest and not stack the box, because I think if you don't take those shots and almost to get those, then I think it's 10 times easier for New England's defense to stack the box even more so and commit harder to the run. And so, like, again, with people, I guess, dissing on Sam Darnold's performance, like his almost ability to get some of these big plays down really just opened up the offense for run plays and these kind of short to mid-range plays that I think we saw Cooper Kupp and AJ Barner take huge advantage of throughout the game.
And the little things too, and keeping him off schedule. I can't tell you how many out routes he threw where I'm like looking at the TV and I'm like, that's a pick 6 if he's just a little bit off. And like he's had at least like 3 or 4 of those throughout the course of the game. Like he was really precise, but those won't go on the box score. Like as far as like how great throws they are, because they're just like 5-6 yard out routes to move the chains. Like it's credit to Cooper Kupp. It's credit to a bunch of these other guys for like trusting in Darnold, but it's part of a bigger discussion because for all the love that Howie Roseman gets as the best GM in the NFL, and rightfully so, Josh Snyder is the only GM to win 2 Super Bowls in this modern era with like 2 entirely different teams. And the way he did it, where like he gave up a lot of like, obviously the Russell Wilson like trade, that was just phenomenal decision making there. But like you get rid of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett at the start of this offseason, making JSN then 1, and then you trade in that trade you draft Byron Murphy 2024. You land Nick Ianbori as part of the DK Metcalf trade. Take a chance on a guy like Riley Mills. You get Devon Witherspoon, like all these guys to help build the team to what it is. Like they used to have one of the worst offensive lines in the league, and like now suddenly like they're not like otherworldly, but they're functional enough to help Sam Darnold like stay on schedule. You get a guy like Cooper Kupp, like even though he didn't have the best statistics, like he picked up a lot of complementary guys that play well together and like picked a good coach, like good foundation, philosophy for the team. Like he doesn't get enough credit, and I think him taking a chance on Sam Darnold, trading away Geno Smith when he did, it's one of the best decisions he's ever made. Like think about how like people were viewing like the Geno Smith decision and going to the Sam Darnold, like coming into this like off season. They're like, oh, Sam Darnold had a phenomenal year, but we don't know. Like he's not on the Vikings anymore. Like he's not with Kevin O'Connell's with a defensive minded guy. It did not matter. Like they made the right decisions when to move off the guys they did, and to completely build another Super Bowl roster like that is just outstanding work.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the last 4 draft classes by the Seattle Seahawks, and you can pretty confidently say every first rounder has been a hit for this team. You have Charles Cross, great offensive lineman. You have Devin Witherspoon, one of the best DBs in the league, followed by JSN, arguably the best wide receiver in the league. Then in 2024, they draft Byron Murphy, who's an up-and-coming borderline top 5 defensive tackle in the league at this point. And then this most recent season, they draft Gray Zabel, who basically immediately inserts himself as a top-tier offensive lineman. And then you look beyond those draft picks, those first-round like specific ones, and you have Kenneth Walker in the mix. You have Kobe Bryant in the mix. You have Tariq Woolen in the mix.
Charbonnet, can't forget about him.
Zach Charbonnet is in this list. AJ Barner, who I think is a potential candidate to be kind of like the next Tucker Kraft trajectory of kind of an underrated to a upper class, like upper echelon tight end in the next like year or two. But I mean, he had a great game regardless, And then this most recent draft class, Nick Emanwari, I think is really good. And then Torrey Horton, obviously he was on the IR this season, but when he was healthy, he was on fire earlier this season. So I'm like, imagine in the Super Bowl, that extra added firepower they could have had with Torrey Horton, who is fast and is seeming to be an elite route runner for basically whenever Cooper Kupp kind of falls off more, I guess. I mean, Cooper Kupp played phenomenally, I think, in the Super Bowl, but obviously he is an older wide receiver. But you got basically your replacement for that kind of guy in Torrey Horton, hopefully in the future. And so it's like every year of the last 4 years, right? You have all your first rounders have hit, and in each class you have like anywhere from 1 to 3 guys who are basically quality starters for your team in addition to those first round picks, which is ultimately how you do want to build a Super Bowl caliber team, which is interesting because you look at the Patriots side of things, and obviously they had great draft classes too, right? But I mean, they've also I think they spent the most they've ever had in free agency, this most recent one. So it's kind of like a tale of 2 ways to build your Super Bowl squad. But obviously, I think you look at this.
Yeah, like I'm looking at some of the numbers, like Milton Williams, Stephon Diggs, Carlton Davis, Harold Landry. Guess how much the Patriots allocated for them combined?
Got to be like 100 million or something.
Almost 90.7 million. It's about 35% of their cap. They spent 35% of their cap on their top 4 players in free agency, which is insane. It's very Bengals-esque. It leads. I'm very curious to see what they do. The one thing they have going for them is their coaching will stay intact because they're very experienced, but nobody wants them as like a head coach for like a different team. So they have a lot of new contributors that played over the past one off season, but it's just crazy to see a stark difference in how they built their teams and where those teams ended up. But like, I would much rather be in a John Snyder situation where you're building just a pipeline of players. So like when you have to make like unfortunate like cap casualty decisions, it's a lot easier to do that when you have like great drafting and great players off of that, where you could trust them into these roles. Just like how they felt confident enough to make JSN the number 1 guy and move on from a number 1 guy like DK and Lockett for many years in Seattle. So yeah.
I kind of
just
do
had to
feel bad for
mention
DK Tyler though.
Well, I mean, do you though? Because he almost cost the Steelers the playoff spot with his antics at the end of the season,
More so Tyler Lockett than DK. But like, imagine being DK the second you leave, like your team makes it to the Super Bowl. But with Tyler Lockett, obviously he's regressed more as a player. But like knowing, I mean, not I don't know obviously Tyler Lockett on a personal level, but from what I've seen in like media, and then I think he like congratulated the team and he was cheering for him or whatever during the Super Bowl. Um, like he definitely feels like a guy that you almost wish was on the Seahawks squad, at least just to
Yeah.
kind of get the participation award, just because I feel like he embodies kind of a lot of what the Seahawks currently, I think, like what their locker room currently represents in terms of like selfless play. I mean, you look at Ken Walker, who's allegedly a really quiet guy. He's really quiet and humble. Um, he dedicated every performance in the playoffs to Zach Charbonnet, his brother. Sam Darnold's a guy who, through the majority of his career, has basically been the joke of the NFL, and he's finally having success, and he's just really seems like a really nice guy now. And so
I didn't even realize Tyler Lockett wasn't there for their Super Bowl run 10 years ago. He was just drafted in 2015. That really sucks.
yeah,
I was about
so
to say, oh, he has one Super Bowl, but no, he doesn't. He doesn't.
right,
He
and
was,
so
he was just drafted right after they won. So
in some ways, it almost feels like Tyler Lockett. I mean, obviously, in hindsight, I feel like he would have been like, I would love to take a veteran minimum just to like be on the squad, but obviously that's not how things played out. But Tyler Lockett seems like a really likable guy, and so it just kind of feels like a bummer that he just missed out.
yeah, I mean, I think now is a good segue. Overall recap. I think Pats have nothing to hang their heads about, but it's clear they got to improve in certain areas. I think credit to them for getting to the Super Bowl. They won in all the ways that were in their control, but it's going to be difficult to get back with all the teams coming back healthy and whatnot. But there's a lot of things they have to clean up internally in order to get back to the Super Bowl. But they do have their quarterback. They do have a lot of talented players on the defensive and offensive end. How do you improve on the margins, considering the contenders in the AFC and dealing with teams like Seattle with where they're at? I think will be huge in Drake May's development as QB. Again, huge. So, yeah, I mean, 2024 quarterback class is crazy. That's what I'll say for that. But I think for Seattle, you got to feel static. There's no reason why they can't come back, but I think it'll be difficult for them because a lot of teams in the NFC will get better as well. Like I'm hoping my Chicago Bears will be right up on their level, but they got to prove it. But then we got the NFC North teams, like the Lions will be back. San Francisco is going to get healthy. Los Angeles is right there with them if they don't make a few mistakes on special teams. Seattle deserves this. They won fair and square, but like I'm very excited to see how the NFC teams respond, and I'm looking forward to see who they face week 1 because it could be a Bears Seahawks matchup Thursday night. That's what I keep hearing.
That'd be pretty cool.
Alrighty. You know what's pretty cool to me? One thing I liked out of this defensive coaching cycle, it seemed like I've talked about this already, but Jesse Minter to the Baltimore Ravens, defensive coordinator of the Los Angeles Chargers formerly. I think he's an absolute gem for what the Ravens need. I think the only answer is how is he going to get the most out of Lamar Jackson and maximize them? But for what he had in the Chargers to what he's stepping into the Ravens, it's almost like the exact same scenario. And he's building a team that's been historically known for their defense in the 2000s, 2010s. And they have the infrastructure from the front office. They seem to know what they're looking for from the offensive end. Declan Doyle, very young coordinator, younger than Lamar Jackson. I'm very excited to see how this new look defense fares under him, and I think he's just another Mike McDonald 2.0 to be quite frank. So I think he was a successor to Mike McDonald in Michigan. So I'm very excited to see how he fares.
Yeah, it's an interesting coaching room, but I do think that getting a defensive-minded guy in Jesse Minter will help because I think a lot of it is personally, I think Lamar's probably in my head is the best quarterback in the league, is the most dynamic, at least personally, in my opinion. And so like the offense, even with just an okay coordinator, in my opinion, can still be a successful unit simply due to the fact that Lamar Jackson is so good that he can elevate and can improvise if he needs to make this a top scoring offense. And then you have that now with hopefully what's going to be a really solid defense. And so I think we will, in fact, see a big time Ravens bounce back coming into next season.
Absolutely. And Bender can scheme with the best of them. Like, he's as good as McDonald. Like, I've talked about how he's surprised even Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes with some of the looks he's had. So he can match up head to head pretty well. What was the coaching situation you liked out of the new hire cycle?
Yeah, the new hire cycle. What? There was a lot.
There's 10 new coaches, so you got a lot to pick from.
I mean, one that we talked about earlier was the Mike McDaniel going to be the offensive coordinator for the Chargers. Obviously, I think there is
talent.
These months, and so it's like that's like a.
I'll allow it. Go ahead.
No, and we already talked about that one for quite a bit earlier, so I'm kind of scrolling. I feel like there was a lot of not a lot, but there was a handful of questionable coaching hires that I wasn't a super fan of. One example being the Arizona Cardinals offensive coordinator position. I texted you about this, and you were pretty disappointed, it seemed, where the Cardinals are hiring for the offensive coordinator position, are hiring former Packers assistant and Broncos head coach Nathaniel Hackett as their offensive coordinator. So he did so good as the coordinator for the Jets, which is his most recent position, that they didn't even include this on the Fox Sports website. So I mean, that's a guy I'm not inherently excited for, but one that I don't think I think it could be tricky to have pan out, but could potentially be a good thing is the Giants getting Matt Nagy as their offensive coordinator. Obviously, his stint with the Bears was not so great, and then obviously the Chiefs' offense has also regressed under him, technically. But then it's like he did run at least one good season with Mitchell Trubisky at the quarterback position when he was the Bears head coach. And so it's like, in just a pure offensive role, maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing for him to run things with Cam Scatterbo and Jackson Dart, especially with Malik Neighbors coming back. So we've seen him do it once before, as the sole offensive mind in the room, pretty much with the Bears. And so it's one that could very easily crash and burn at the very start of the season. But also I think this is a move that could potentially pan out, but it's less likely. But compared to a Nathaniel Hackett, where I have zero faith in really having a lot of success, this one's like a 30% shot it has success and can be a lot of fun for the Giants offense.
Yeah, I think the one thing they have going for them is Harbaugh. I think the culture will be established on the Giants, and I think they'll be great at that. I just don't know if the creativity and keeping Jackson Dart's best interests at heart, meaning keeping him on the field, and I don't know if Nagy is gonna get the most out of Jackson Dart maturing as a runner. And I know he's aware of it. I know so many people are talking to him about it. But you need to have a coach that game plans in a way that's going to help keep you on the field and make smart decisions. I think about the Justin Fields game as far as what did Matt Nagy do to create an environment for Justin Fields to succeed without getting him killed. And I'll look at the Cleveland Browns game where he got sacked 9 times in his debut. And I'm like, that's the time you roll out Justin Fields and you have no plan. That's what I think about. And I think about the Kansas City struggles where it's you have the talented players. So it's I think Harbaugh and the GM will get plenty of talent to help them out. And mitigate as much as that. But it's which Nagy are we getting? Are we getting 2018? Or are we getting found out Matt Nagy? I'm not sure. And I didn't like that either. Back to the Cardinals, I also didn't like that as well. And I want to give Mike LaFleur a chance because I think he wasn't given a proper chance in New York.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't think the Cardinals made the right philosophical decision. Like I would have much rather had Robert Saleh in that position for
Mm-hmm.
the Cardinals because he is a head coach. I think that was a great hire for the tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think going the offensive route in the NFC West and with the coaches you select is I like the Vance Joseph hire. Don't get me wrong. I like that one. But I think trying to steal a guy from like the Sean McVay coffee cup tree is not the wisest considering what Mike McDonald just did and the offensive play callers you have to gonna go against year after year after year. It's like one of those things where I don't think it's gonna last 3 years with the organization. I think they're gonna have to make another decision. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like the philosophy they went with that.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the Hackett thing, you already went berserk with that. So
Yeah.
that'd be
I guess a move that I did kind of like was the San Francisco 49ers getting Raheem Morris to be their defensive coordinator. Obviously, him being a head coach didn't quite pan out, I think, as he had hoped, and a lot of Falcons fans had hoped, unfortunately. But for losing Robert Saleh, like, I don't know how many guys you can confidently say, could fill in that basically the hole in the defense by losing that superstar defensive coordinator, considering the injuries that they had and the fact that they were still a decent enough unit. And so it's like, sure, there are probably a lot of interesting assistant coaches that have high upside, but you really don't know. But then at least with Raheem Morris, you have more semblance of an idea of like, this is kind of the product or the output that I'll get out of him coaching the defense. And considering the fact that you're already in such a competitive position, I like the fact that they made a safer play in getting Raheem Morris to be their defensive coordinator rather than trying to, I guess, poach like a defensive assistant from maybe another team that had some success. Just because you never really know with some of these with some of these assistant coaches.
and you probably will lose them in the next year. So like this is
Mm-hmm.
it kind of creates like some consistency and structure within
Mm-hmm.
your defensive players, like in systems. So
Mm-hmm.
like you have Nick Bosa coming back, you have Fred Warner coming back, like and you have all these young guys that are playing the whole year. Like now, like in 2027, 2028, like you don't have to worry about losing Raheem Morris per se. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I like how you pointed that out. Another coaching hire I liked, Kevin Stefanski to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Much better quality of life. Already has a ton of offensive players to work with. Like felt like he wasn't working with anything in Cleveland, although like
Mm-hmm.
part of it was his fault for letting Baker go.
Mm-hmm.
Won't dive into that drama, but I think his relationship with Matt Ryan, I
Mm-hmm.
think the offensive players there, like keeping a really good defensive coordinator in Jeff Ulbrich and having a new general manager
Mm-hmm.
and getting a chance to evaluate is Michael Penix the guy because I think they're moving on from Kirk Cousins. A little bit surprising to me because Stefanski had success with Kirk, but from the financials, I can understand why they're
Mm-hmm.
doing it. But
Yeah.
I think just the prospect where like you get a full year to see like how does this coach look with Michael Penix? Can he get the most out of him? If not, and I hate to say this because I love the talent of Michael Penix, but I think the injuries have caught up to him at this point in his
Mm-hmm.
career. You can look at 2027 where there's going to be Arch Manning potentially, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of other quarterbacks you got to really like there. So I like this move for Atlanta. I think they're in a much better spot organizationally than they were under the Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris. Even though
Mm-hmm.
Raheem Morris is a great guy to have as a coach, I don't think he got the most out of the team for what Atlanta fans kind of expect to go into this season.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting, to see how Michael Penix plays. And I think sure, there's like the whole cap situation with Kirk Cousins, with his contract and everything, but also I think at least, obviously it's not official yet, but if they probably do go through with this, right? It's a situation where Michael Penix is like, oh well, there's not a guy getting paid, you know, one of the better contracts in the league, riding the bench right behind me, trying to hope for almost any opportunity come and start playing football ahead of me. He's gonna have to look behind his shoulder looking at that at all now going into the season. Like even if they draft a guy in the 6th round or something, it's like it's a 6th round guy. What do I really have to worry about? If it pans out for the Falcons that a 6th round guy can beat out Penix, awesome for them, I guess. But realistically for Penix, I think it's almost like a sigh of relief that he can just focus, I guess, on the game ahead, on getting better, on getting healthy, without worrying that I got to rush back, because if I don't and Kirk has a good stretch of games, then they'll just keep on rolling out with him, And so from that end, I kind of do like it, but obviously there are a lot of question marks around Michael Penix starting to show, both his injury and just development in general. But yeah.
But I think the other perspective is what's stopping Stefanski for picking out a free agent out of the pool. Like he could just go back to Joe Flacco, or it could go back after like Malik Willis is coming to free agency. Kyler Murray, like maybe he thinks he could get the best out of him in a different structure. Like I think there's a lot of wait and see, and like it'll be very interesting to see what Atlanta does from the QB spot going into this season, because I don't think it's as clear cut as like, okay, draft the next QB or not. I think they're gonna do something, or maybe not. We don't know.
Yeah.
It's intriguing to me because there's a lot of pieces there that you have a lot of talent that can work, and I want to see what does Stefanski learn from Cleveland's situation where he's not in an ideal spot to work with the talent he has.
Yeah. I think my reserves with signing one of these quarterbacks is, or going after one of these quarterbacks is realistically, I'm like, if I'm the Falcons, I really would only want to take the contracts of a Mac Jones or a Joe Flacco to be alongside. Because it's like if you go after a guy like Malik Willis, how much do you got to like? At minimum, I'm thinking like a $30 million contract to try to get Malik Willis, and at that point, you're signing him to be your starter.
And Pitts is hitting free agency too as well. Like
right,
you got to think about that too.
Yeah, so if you get Malik Willis, you're paying the $30+ million there. You're paying all the dead cap of Kirk Cousins for just releasing him, and then on top of that, you got what your like $10 million a year contract that you're paying Michael Penix for being a top 10 draft pick or whatever, and so it's like at that point, what you're paying like north of like $70-80 million just for the quarterback position. We've seen how that's benefited the Cleveland Browns cap situation in terms of being able to field a full roster when you have Deshaun Watson's monster contract with absolutely zero output coming out of that. Or like some of the shortcomings that we've seen with the Broncos. Obviously Broncos have made it pretty far, but we've seen some of like the shortcomings on offense with the Broncos roster as a whole, considering you're dealing with like $30 million of Russell Wilson cap space. Luckily, it's only $30 million compared to whatever you got Kirk plus signing another quarterback plus a 1st-round draft pick quarterback, whereas the Broncos, it was Russ's contract plus Bo Nix. But yeah.
Yeah, speaking of the Browns, I could probably loop in AFC North. I don't know what the AFC North teams are doing, Saints and Ravens. But for the Browns in particular, I just don't know how they went about this. Like hiring Monken. I love Monken as an offensive mind. Don't get me wrong. But the way Cleveland went about it, like you heard about the essay, 500-page or 500-word essay. Then you heard about candidates dropping out. Then you heard about Jim Schwartz potentially getting in his feelings about not getting the job and not wanting to be DC. Like it felt like their process was out of sorts, and they kind of ended up with Monken as a consolation prize. And I don't feel great about it if I'm Shedeur Sanders or any young quarterback the Browns are planning to select with their pick. And I don't have questions on can he help improve Shedeur, because I think he can. I have questions on like, are you going to scare Myles Garrett out of the building? Or are you just going to scare all these talented defensive players out of the building that you just built? And what's that going to look like? And are you going to field a complimentary football team? Like, yeah. I think they just reverted the other way completely. And I don't know what to make of this situation.
Yeah, the tricky thing with the Browns again is just the contracts. It's like, can you accept like another couple of years of like? I mean, you already suck, but it's like, how many more can you accept to just like to fully tear down basically everything that you have? At least that's a veteran player or a high cap situation where it's like what you. I mean, like ultimately, you would start with you cut Deshaun Watson and just like be the worst cap situation team like all time for like a year or two because of that Deshaun Watson contract, right?
It
As
feels like
it's,
he's a David Culley hire. Like,
mm-hmm,
am I looking at this weird? Like, it feels like that where they're just like just try to punt a year, see what they have in Shador, and then like just start fresh. Like, is that a weird way to look at it? I don't know.
yeah, like it does feel. I mean, because I feel like this is like a perfect situation to try punting in because it's like, hey, if we have something with Shador, I mean, and I think part of the head coaching hire here is he seems excited to work with Sanders, which I think is the biggest positive coming out of this, and so if you can get more out of Sanders with the current roster that they have, I think that'll be a nice positive to see. But like if you can get rid of that, just cut Watson and again have zero money, which means you got to take other losses. But like you have a couple of young guys who I am excited for, specifically Harold Fannin Jr. and Quinshon Judkins. Potentially, Shadur Sanders could be a guy, right? But then you're in a spot where I'm like, why do you even have Myles Garrett on this team? Like obviously he's been a Cleveland Brown for life, and I think it's awesome that you got the sack record in Cleveland, your home team basically that you started your career with. But now it's like the Browns are still, I think, at best a couple years away, like 3 years away, from potentially fielding a competitive lineup because of that Deshaun Watson contract sink. And now you're paying Myles Garrett ridiculous money for a team that's like can only do so well with an elite defense, right? Denzel Ward isn't getting any younger. And by the time, again, in 3 years, how good can Denzel Ward be at the cornerback position? Because the fall offs for cornerbacks almost seem like they're faster than they are for wide receivers. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah probably doesn't play football again with his injury. And so it's like you have all these pieces that don't seem like there's you have good players, but a lot of these guys won't be anywhere near as good players by the time you're relevant to compete again. So if you get valuable draft picks or you can get younger, developmental, more raw players to fill in these spots, then it's like, I think that would be a significantly better direction to go towards. It's kind of just the Browns segment of rebuilding the franchise. But
I mean, imagine if you're a Browns fan hearing this. You're like, we've been rebuilding for the past 50 years, man. Other than 2017, what have we done well as a franchise? Like that's what you're asking in your head right now. And
yeah, it's like your best quarterback in the past, 30 years has been Baker Mayfield, and you ran him out of town. So it's like,
yeah, I mean, it's a full organization overhaul is what they needed, starting at the head coach. Yeah, so it's when I hear 3 years, I'm hearing they're not competing, like, but for the next 5, because you look at all these AFC teams right now, you got Bo, you got Drake, like, still got Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar, and Joe in there. Like, yeah, they're not going to be the same like 3-4 years from now, but like, there's going to be other talented QBs. Like Trevor Lawrence is just starting to put it together. Like, contending is no gimme with this team. Like, to just figure it out. I think they're just taking some of their defensive talented players for granted. And by the time they fully get this right, the one side of the ball is going to be completely aged out and not the same. And they got to fix that the next offseason. So it's let's give Monken a chance, but I don't like what I'm seeing.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Watson contract details or whatever, and it runs through the 2026 season, but with restructures, they extended some of those cap implications into 2027 and beyond, it says. So they're expecting to cut Deshaun Watson post June 1st in 2027, which is like, so basically this year is for sure a punt because, again, you have no money. Like, with Deshaun Watson and Myles Garrett's contracts combined, like, that's like almost half of your salary cap or something like that. Like, just maybe just a little bit below that. But, like, the fact that
Their
that's
cap hit is 100 million right now. That's
jeez.
yeah.
Right. So you're at like what, a third of your cap is going to those two guys. And we talked about the Patriots top four guys, right? It's like those four guys don't make as much as these two guys apparently.
Yeah.
Because that was a 90 million situation. This is like $100 million. So you're saving $10 million by having these guys over Deshaun Watson and Myles Garrett.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, they gotta. I don't think they're keeping Wyatt Teller like in free agency. I just don't know how you do it. Like it's you're gonna have to sacrifice a couple pieces here, and by the time they fully get this right, it'll be a bit. I think one last guy I like out of this list, just to round us out here. Obviously, I talked about Salah, but from the Las Vegas end, I really like the Clint Kubiak signing. Actually, I think it's great for what he's good at. He's going to maximize Ashton Genty now that it's official, and then Brock Bowers. Obviously, he has weapons to work with here. We'll see what he wants to do from the quarterback position, but he's got the number 1 pick in the draft, and the more and more I obviously watched Mendoza doing the couple of college football playoff games in the championship. I like him a lot for Kubiak's system. I really do. And I think with what they have going, like he's gonna be a home run hire. I don't think this is a Mike LaFleur situation. I look at this as like he didn't screw up with Sam Darnold and production of pieces from the receiver end on the surface. He's helped integrate a lot of pieces. He knows how to find good offensive linemen. And he's already stated he wants Max Crosby to still be within the organization. So I don't know who he hired as a DC yet. Very curious to see if they're keeping Patrick Graham or they're moving on from him. I'm gonna look this up actually because they might have. No, I think they're still working on it. They're looking at Jason Tarver, Joe Woods. Don't know much about Tarver, but yeah, I think just from a situation standpoint on offense, Las Vegas is well equipped to like be built sustainably. And I like that for where this team is headed. It remains to be seen how he does from a head coaching spot, like helping build up that defense as well. But I think it's a much needed hire for the team.
Yeah, I'm excited for. I think it's going to be a good hire. I think I'd hope that the Raiders ownership understands that this is going to be a multi-year project because I mean you look at it's like the last 5 or 6 Raiders head coaches were fired all after one season, and so it's like it seems like it didn't pan out the way we wanted. Let's fire him. But like I hope that I guess the rapport that he has or like and basically the credit he has as a coach so far can help him last longer than just one season with the Raiders because the Raiders genuinely do have a lot to work on in terms of team construction. I think I mentioned like previously where it's like the Raiders are such a depleted team of talent where it's like when you have like Tyree Wilson, who you drafted like 6th overall in his rookie, like whatever draft class he was. And he's had his moments here and there, but he's been nowhere near what you want out of a top 10 draft pick pass rusher. Max Crosby wants out of the team. I mean, obviously, you can say you want him back because he is a borderline top 5 pass rusher in the league, right? But it's like, it's whatever. I mean, if Max Crosby decides he doesn't want to be there, he doesn't want to be there or whatever. I mean, you have the ghost of Jamal Adams as your weak side linebacker, Devin White as your strong side guy. In your secondary, like Eric Stokes seems like your best player. O-line has been one of the worst in the league. Your wide receiver room is Trey Tucker, Jack Beck, Dante Thornton, Tyler Lockett, Alex Backman, Shedrick Jackson. So there's this is hundreds. I mean, yeah, this is a multi-year rebuild project, like starting right now, basically with what he's been given. And so, I mean, that's kind of just like what needs to happen is they need to give him the leeway of this team will probably suck for like 2 to 3 years. Because I mean, with one elite draft class and a solid free agency, we've seen teams kind of turn it around despite having flaws. But I feel like there's a lot of flaws, which is kind of the scary bit here.
Yeah, and you can't expect a New England to happen with this team. Like I fully agree. I think that's a rarity that happens. And I think the one thing that gives me promise is that the Raiders waited until the Super Bowl to make their decision. They didn't try to quickly hire like how the Browns did. And that gives me a lot more confidence that the decision they made had a bunch of due process, especially when you have the greatest player of all time helping you out with the selection. That means a lot too. But you give yourself a candidate who probably would have been plucked off like next year's coaching hire cycle. And you got stuck in a bad situation with a coach you rushed to pick on. And like by waiting, you give yourself who you want and you can build a strategy around it. And I think it's a sign for things to come. I think the thing I'll be looking for is like how well does the quarterback in Kubiak's system grow over the course of a year. And that will kind of help me see like, okay, is he a guy that can influence, take charge, and like lead an entire unit when he's the head guy? I think that will show a lot. So it doesn't have to be like top 10 offense, like under his stewardship. Obviously, dealing with rookie and dealing with one of the worst offensive lines in the league, there's a lot of work you got to do from the personnel front and integration during the season. So it's gonna take some time. But I like the talent he's walking into, similarly with Stefanski. But like you got 2 really good blue chip players with the #1 pick also. Like you have some great pieces to start off with. Now it's on the GM to try and help out Kubiak, so we'll see how the situation plays out. But great start so far. Any other candidates you want to talk about?
No, I think that was mostly it. I was going to bring up like hopefully the Raiders have an easier schedule despite having the tough divisional games. I was like, hopefully they'll have an easier schedule being 4th place, but then I just looked at their 2026 opponents and I'm like, dude, this sucks so bad for them. Because it's what? Yeah, future. So next season, the Raiders face the Broncos twice, the Chiefs twice, the Chargers twice, and then they face the Bills, the Rams, the Patriots, the Seahawks, and the 49ers.
Good luck.
And then the weaker teams are the Jets, Saints, Titans, Dolphins, Browns, and Cardinals. But obviously, Saints looked pretty good in the back half of the season, too.
I mean, that's a lot more games than I thought. But yeah, I mean, whenever you're facing both the NFC and the AFC West, that's not a good outlook for like your prospects. But hey, I mean, why not start tanking now in February? It's perfect. But I think it's not more. I think it's if you're a Raiders fan, I wouldn't look at their record next season because it's not going to look pretty from the win-loss column.
Yeah,
I would look for progress. It's one of those situations where it's like it's a rebuilding team. They need progress more than anything. And you want to look for how they do weeks 8 through 17, just as you would like any team, but like with the Raiders specifically. How do they look weeks 8 through 17? Because first 8 weeks are going to be really inconsistent. Like you're going to be stuck with a bunch of Super Bowl contending teams you're going up against, and you're not going to get a good look and like how well are they actually playing because they're expected to lose this game. So how much stock should we put into it? I think it's more of like how the operation goes and from the second half of the season after the first half of the season.
Yeah. I just saw at their 2027 opponents as well, minus like the 3 that aren't decided yet. And the Ravens have to face the AFC North and the NFC North the following season.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't mentioned on the list, but like Mike McCarthy's Steelers, I don't know. I have my doubts about how that team will do.
Yeah.
But I hear your point for the most part. Like assuming Zach Taylor's a functional coach and Mentors, who I think he is, like that's going to be a strong division to compete.
Yeah. So. And then plus just the NFC North and what we expect out of them, but
yeah. Alrighty, that will do it for us. We'll probably take a mini hiatus for about a month, so I'm not bugging Corstian to hop on all the time, talk football. But that was probably my favorite part of the offseason. We'll get to hope swings eternal for each team. Looking forward to free agency, which guy will go where. How many of the 50 free agents do I think the Bears should take? How many of the 30 other free agents that I think Corstian will want the Broncos to have to make it one step closer to Super Bowl championship. And as always, we'll have draft coverage too as well. So stay tuned for that. And until then, we'll see you next week. Corstian, hit the outro, buddy.
Yeah. Peace. Yeah.